Oh, here we go. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite film podcast, The Average Film Enjoyer. We are joined today. Well, obviously, it's Trey and Jagger, of course, but we are joined today by our good friend Brett, who is, I don't want to get your title wrong, the department director at Letterboxd. I don't know.
That
Brett, you
you
want to
know,
introduce yourself?
if my CEO allows that, that sounds incredible. But thank you. One, thank you for having me today, and two, my title is more of like the Horrorville editor, curator, writer of all things horror at Letterboxd.
Yeah. Yeah, we're super excited to have you on today and talk about some of the films that some of your favorite horror films. And but first of all, guys, how are we doing today? Jagger, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here with this. I think that this is a very exciting episode for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, very very exciting. Brett, how about you? How are we doing today?
Fantastic. Like I said, such a great opportunity to be. I was honored. Excuse me, honored to be here. Thank you for
Yeah.
the opportunity. I know it's Saturday. Words get jumbled. And I think there'll be
Yeah.
a lot of word salad today. I'm a New Yorker. I talk fast. And so I hope the audience enjoys that part of everything.
Yeah, of course. Like we're happy to have you here. And again, we're not super formal. We jumble over words all the time. It makes for a more
Mhm,
entertaining podcast.
mhm.
But first I wanted to ask you, so like how did you this is something we ask every guest we have on. How did you like what got you into film? Like what spurred this love and passion that I think the three of us share for film and maybe horror specifically?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. This is gonna be a long answer, but I basically jumped into my love of film at an early age. I was many years ago. I'm in my mid 40s, so I'm gonna kind of date myself here. But I was sick from day camp, and my parents, left me alone, and I raided their VHS closet, and I started watching The Poltergeist,
Oh,
um,
yes.
the hidden Nightmare on Elm Street. So I started off with like some of the small sci-fi horror classics, and then I decided I wanted to become actually at first because had a Fangoria subscription back in the day, and we had a little independent video store,
Mhm.
and these employees would feed me everything, posters, movie recommendations. So I kind of like broadened my knowledge there. But I decided, I'm like, hey, you know what? I want to work on horror films. I want to do like makeup effects and stuff. And my parents were like, no, you're going to get a profession. I come from family doctors, so I was kind of like the black sheep of my family.
Mhm.
My bar mitzvah theme was horror film, so a lot of people were probably like, "What's wrong with this kid? He looks normal, but he likes these psychotic things." But I eventually became a school teacher. I actually have a bachelor's and master's in education. I taught sixth grade math and science and high school special ed, and then changed careers, moved into social media and tech in the early days, and which I still kind of also do. And I've been working with Letterboxd for a little over 3 years now. So I'm entering my fourth. Great company, and obviously it's allowed me to kind of build upon my love for film and to talk about it with a large community, including yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know me and Jagger are both huge letterbox nerds. I mean, what my first instinct after I watch a movie is to go log it on Letterbox, especially the custom posters.
Hmm.
You get some of the custom posters. I know we talked about this on our last episode for The Exorcist Believer, which came out earlier this year. Because like anybody can make those custom posters, and there's one where it's the Exorcist Believer poster, but it's just Peter Griffin in the middle. And I'm like, oh, I love open creativity. And I don't know, it's just it's like I don't know, it's a great way to connect with other movie lovers.
Hmm.
And it's I yeah,
And,
it's great. It's great.
and
One of you has, I think, Evil Dead 2 in your top four, your four
Yeah.
favorites. So,
that's
and
me.
I know it's that the poster is quite different than the other ones we've seen. So I know you selected your own custom poster for that. So good for
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
And
Um
Letterboxd has also been a huge deal for me because when I started to realize how it connects with TMDB, um, I always sort of found the concept of filmmaking interesting. So then I went out and made a few like short films myself. And then I have also ended up working with like custom poster concepts and stuff. So Letterboxd has been sort of a way for me to grow in my own creativity as well. So I guess all I can say is thank you. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, we love our members, our communities that are on Letterbox. So yeah, no, it's great to hear about like all these different stories of people and how they're using it and interacting with the films that they love, and also finding others who enjoy different forms of craft that are on there. So yeah, and then plus we have different teams that focus on and write about different types of content. So yeah, we're film lovers ourselves behind the scenes, and this is what we love to do, and learn from others and see what everyone's working on. So yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. So I want to get into these films. So I think me and Brett are going to do the first few. Jagger will join us a little bit later for the last few. But yeah, let's get into it. So about, I don't know, I think this was when I was in Hawaii, because Brett, I was sitting on my couch in Hawaii. I had just woken up and Jagger calls me and was like, dude, Brett agreed to come on our podcast. And I was like, what? And you sent us these lists of films that you wanted to talk about. And I'm really excited. The first one I want to talk about is VHS 2. So about a month ago, or 2 months, I watched the first VHS film, which for people who don't know, these are like anthology films. It's like a main story that follows these people who find VHS tapes, and it's like 10 to 20-minute little short horror flicks. And I have to say, I did not enjoy the first one. I was interested because the guys that were a part of Blair Witch, which I really enjoy, were a part of that. And I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me. So I was definitely cautious going into this one. It was excellent. There was only like one of the little shorts that I didn't love. I thought it was fun, but I didn't love. We'll get into that in a sec. But I mean, it was just, all of them were just so well done. And I'm wondering, what are your like opening thoughts about this one, VHS 2, and what do you love about it so much?
Yeah, so I guess like yourself, I watched VHS, the first one, and
Mm-hmm.
there were certain segments I really enjoyed and some I didn't. I think it's a great um, anthology, and I'm glad that it spawned a number of sequels, especially landing on Shudder. Basically we've gotten a new film for the past 3 years,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. But VHS 2, I mean, why I find it one of my favorite horror films and something I watch is I consider it one of my comfort horror films, because it's just so much fun to watch, and just different directors and different segments and different themes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just the wraparound story, which is from Simon Barrett. I think was fantastic, and I think those actors did a great job keeping it all together. But like I said, it was the people behind the camera as well. I think Adam Wingard, Jamie Nash, you have
Yeah.
Timo. I always forget. I always butchered Timo's last name, Timo Tahanto, and Jason Eisner, who did the last segment in that film, which actually turned into another full-length feature film, Kids vs. Aliens, from his sleepover alien abduction sleepover. I'm going to butcher the segment title, but like I
Yeah.
said, all these stories were just really well shot. They were just fun. I think the acting was great, and I think a lot of the kills were great as well. It just delivered the gore, and that's what I want.
I thought these were all excellent. A thought that came to me while watching this is that there's a lot of there's horror as a genre, which its main goal, I guess, would be to scare you. That's the main goal here, to induce that feeling of anxiety and fear that for horror lovers like us, so many that we chase after. Like that's like I chase after that feeling I get from a horror movie that's like, oh. Um, and there's definitely subgenres in horror, like topics that scare me more than others, which definitely comes up in these anthology series because they tackle so many different subgenres. Like you get one about aliens, you get one about zombies, you get one about a cult, you get one about ghosts. Um, and which is why the zombies one, the bike, I think it's called like the biker in the woods, or a ride in the
Ride in the
woods.
park. Yep, a ride in the
Yeah,
park. Yeah,
I've never found zombies scary. They just look goofy to me. But like the one you talked about, the alien, the one where the kids get attacked by the aliens, that freaked me out. That was so well done, and it scared me. And I'm just
yep.
wondering for you if there's like a certain subgenre of horror that really scares you, or what was your favorite of this one, or which
Mhm.
one was not your favorite?
Well, I think they were actually all my favorite on an
Mm-hmm.
equal level. But I
Yeah.
think what really stood out, also I should have mentioned this before, was what the technology used. Like you had the, a supposed camera in an eye. You had
Mm-hmm.
the GoPro on a bike on the biker's helmets.
Yeah.
I just felt like that first person point of view, I think, is really what makes it scary and intense,
Mm-hmm.
and it reels the people in. But yeah, like I said, like there's a ghost story. There are all different types of stories here. But in terms of what subgenres, that really kind of, you know, I guess instigate fear in myself. Um, I don't know. It's maybe more the body horror. Just seeing like
Yeah.
something getting cut off, a body part being cut off, because that's something that can really happen. Not like the monsters and then people getting glued
Yeah.
together like human centipede, but losing a limb is something that could be kind of scary.
Yeah.
And basically when I drive every day, I feel like I'm gonna crash and lose a limb because I'm a horrific driver.
Yeah. And in this one, we get a lot of tinges of sci-fi, which kind of brings me into the next two I wanted to talk about together, which were two films, plus one, which uh, I thought was excellent, and Coherence, and they both deal with this idea of a otherworldly kind of alien presence. In Coherence, it's the comet. In plus one, I still don't know. It's some alien presence that took over the electricity that is somehow branching off into these two separate realities. And it's these people experiencing seeing themselves in these two separate realities. And that really trippy idea. Um, First off, which one did you prefer? Like, which one of those? Because I feel like deal with a similar idea, but in two very different ways.
Yeah, so I mean, it's more. I think both stories, yes, they're started by some kind of phenomenon. Like
Mm-hmm.
with a comment or something, hitting those electric wires, and then just spreads through. And
Exactly.
then we see multiple forms of a person being duplicated throughout an evening, or what we're supposed to think is happening. Um, I really enjoy Plus One. Not a lot of people have seen it, and I always recommend it to people. Although I love Coherence, it's one of my favorites. But Plus One, I just think was just a great story. Had a great cast. You had Reese Wakefield from who's in the Purge film. You have Logan Miller, who's in the Escape Room films, as well as The Good Neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really enjoyed the cast. I felt like their reactions were real to what was happening, even though they're acting. But I just felt like they really fit into the film, and I don't think it could have been played by other people. But then when you move over to Coherence, the great thing about the film, there's a character in the film named Lemire. He's actually one of the co-writers of the film, and
Yeah.
he was, while it's being filmed, he was kind of like instigating where it should go, like leading them on, saying like, okay, this is. He carried the the film because it was mostly improvised, so he had to
Uh-huh.
like make sure they were all
Oh,
familiar with the story. Yeah, it's really amazing how it was filmed. It was filmed over 5 days, very small budget, and like I said, I feel like they really, carried it well, and it was
yeah.
well produced. I think they had two cameras, like kind of handheld. It was very loose and moved around a lot so that they can focus on all the actors on the set. Um,
Yeah.
but also, like it's just two crazy stories, two different films, two different crazy stories, and
Mhm.
I feel like the people themselves were just, you know, in it to win it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the in like like for example, in plus one, you have this idea that there is basically this a second person of every person has appeared, and they're slowly catching up to the original. And in the
Mhm.
end, right? Spoilers ahead, people skip ahead like 5 minutes if you don't want spoilers for plus one or coherence. they end up getting in fights with their past or future selves, however you want to look at it, and killing themselves essentially,
Right.
which sounds really weird to say out loud. And then in coherence, you have very similar things that happen, except it's not just one variant. It is millions and millions of variants.
Hmm.
But again, they end up going to war with themselves. Um, and I think it deals with this really cool idea of like, it's a really interesting way that I've never seen before, dealing with this idea of self destruction. And, and that's especially studied in the character in Plus One, who, I can't remember her name, the redhead
Head. I,
girl.
I was just going to mention her because she sees herself,
Mm-hmm.
but she embraces it.
Yeah.
She's not scared, and it's just like, yeah, you're kind of like, what's going on here? Like, because they were like, looked like they were about to get intimate and like
Yeah.
try to figure out what's happening. So yeah, I mean, while everyone was trying to beat the shit out of each other, with their other multiple forms,
Mm-hmm.
this girl, she just was just like, bring it in, see what happens.
Yeah. I thought that was
Weird.
super interesting. Um, but yeah, both films very
Mhm.
excellent. I think for me, I preferred Coherence. Oh, these even came out in the same year. That's
Yeah,
wild that
it
these
must have been
both
something in
came
the
out.
water.
Yeah, that is wild. And then before Jagger comes on, there's two more that I wanted to touch on. First of all, Belko experiment. So this is a film. You said who is the director again? I know James Gunn wrote it.
Greg McLean.
Greg McLean. Yeah.
Yep.
This is one I enjoyed a lot. Um, I I mean John Gallagher Jr. is great, and
Hmm.
I also love Michael Rooker. Um, Obviously from Walking Dead and his role as Yondu in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. But after seeing like the ratings my friends have this at, like my mutuals like 2.5, 3 stars, it kind of blows my mind.
Unfollow them.
I don't understand it because it's such a blast.
You know
It's
what? It, but I don't feel like it's for everyone.
mhm,
And I know we're going to touch upon that, but I feel like some people might think it's just senseless violence, or also this came out at a time where there's a lot of workplace shootings. It might touch
yeah,
a certain part of someone and say like, you know what, that's a little too soon, or it's uncomfortable to me because of it's a real life setting. And not that I'm going to say this can happen, but there's been violence in the workplace, so a lot of people shied away from it.
yeah,
But for the ones who are love it, I think they're just looking at it for senseless violence and trying to figure out like, what's the end game here, or who are the brains behind it and what's the end game. So there's like I said, there's gonna be like three sides to every story here.
yeah. I loved it a lot. Obviously, it has some great gore. I'm a huge fan of gore, like the Saw films, The
Hmm.
Collector, which we'll talk about with Jagger. Anything with great gore, like the gorier the better. I love it.
Yeah.
I find it so fun.
Hmm.
And this one obviously has that, but it also has, and this is why I love it so much, the little things that James Gunn instills in every movie he touches, like crazy needle drops that are just awesome. Great soundtrack. Sean Gunn just randomly appearing. It's yeah, I just had a blast with this one. But uh
Well, there's
Haunt.
also
Oh,
Tony Goldwyn's in it as well.
yeah,
He was in Last House on the Left in 2009.
yeah,
I think he was the president in the TV series Scandal, which I never watched. Just letting everyone know, I just know he was in it. Never watched it, but it's a great cast. But I think it's Greg McLean. I don't think anyone else really could have directed it. It was supposed to be James Gunn. He stepped away because of personal reasons. But
hmm,
Greg McLean, who I love from the Wolf Creek films, just did a great job. And they're filmed differently, but I think Greg McLean understands his audience. He's looking for ultimate violence. If you look at Mick Taylor from the Wolf Creek films, like it's just senseless torture porn violence,
yeah,
which I love. But he brought it to a workplace setting. A great story there, written by James Gunn, and I like I said, Greg McLean, should have won all the awards for this. It was just so much fun to see
Yeah.
everything being played out, from beginning to end.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of great gore, Haunt.
Oof.
This was a genuine surprise for me, and I would like to share why. It's because so you essentially in this film you have the classic teenagers go to a haunted house, and there's some crazy like they're like, wow, that looks so real. It is real, and they start getting picked off, right? And I was expecting this whole time, because I've seen this in so many other horror films like this, for one of the masked individuals to be someone the main character knew. In this case, oh, what was her name? I am so bad with names.
Harper.
Harper. Yeah. And in this case, Harper, I was expecting it to be someone she knew, because like there's always that twist. It's like, and it's her ex-boyfriend. Da, 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 you know? And they had so many opportunities in this. They had the alcoholic beating ex-boyfriend who is a psycho. They had the dad who beat the mom. I mean, there's two characters that would have been excellent to bring that twist, and it totally would have made sense. Like, oh yeah, of course they're crazy. But they didn't do that. And they're like, oh no, it's just a bunch of psychos who are killing these kids.
Right.
And then they have so many more opportunities throughout it to be like, but they're actually being run by this person, and they just never do it. And I found that, I don't know why, but it just tickled my brain in the right way. I was expecting this thing the whole time, and it just never happened. And I was like, oh, I've never seen that before. That's super interesting. I kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Well, I'm glad with the story that came on screen, because I feel
Mhm.
like, and I actually like the areas you mentioned, but I'm glad they didn't explore that yet, maybe, because I feel like this was just supposed to be like an extreme haunted house, a very extreme, obviously, and
Mhm.
off the grid haunted house where, like you said, people are being picked off one by one, um, through this maze of a house or factory like setting, and there's traps and exquisite sets and obviously vicious people behind the scenes. um
Yeah.
I thought the characters were great. I really felt like they had good chemistry. It wasn't a dumb script. This film was written and directed by Beck and Woods, who actually also did A Quiet Place. So it's always like, they went from a small film to a blockbuster. But I think Haunt has always been on the top of my Halloween list every year since then. It's just one of those great films I always encourage people to see every year.
Yeah, it was really excellent. I really enjoyed this one, and I thought this was really topical. And Jagger, if you want to join us, if you can hear me, because I'm pretty sure you watched this documentary as well. There was a documentary that came out earlier this year about Russ McKamey, who was like he ran like supposedly the most extreme haunted house in the country. Um, and I thought this was super topical, because that's been like a huge thing this year, especially the last couple years, of like these extreme haunted houses where people would go to these insane lengths to get this scare. And I just thought that was super interesting. Uh, but Jagger, you're back.
What was this person? Was he the one who was paying people if they can like get through the entire
Yeah.
house or maze? He would give them, I think, like $10,000 or some
Yeah,
fee.
yeah,
Yeah.
you should check out the documentary. It's on Hulu. It's a really well done documentary, and it's crazy. It's it's insane. It's well, the stuff people are allowed to do if they sign a waiver. Oh my lord.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, Jagger is back. I'm gonna let Jagger take over this second half of the interview. I'll still be here to lend a comment once in a while, but I think there's a few that Jagger wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I may just start with the big one, The Collector. I mean, where to start with this movie, I don't know. Um, it starts as like a cheesy early 2000s horror movie,
Hmm.
like the cliche 2000s horror movie. And then just like that, it really just switches up into a heart-pounding chaotic but awesome movie. So I'm just gonna sort of pass it back over to you with what about this movie drew you in so much?
Yeah. So I've always loved The Collector. I like Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton. I think they brought together a really, this could have been a really great franchise, which I'll get into. But this film was actually supposed to be like a Saw prequel. Because they had a lot
Really?
of people who moved in these films who were involved in those films. He had Marcus Dunstan, who I forgot which Saw he did. I think he did Saw 4 and maybe 5, or he worked on some of the films. Um, but I like the actors in this. I think Josh Stewart's a fantastic actor. He was also in another one of their films called The Neighbor, which was really great, which I hope you can check out. But The Collector itself, I don't know, it was just the story behind it. Yeah, he owes the ex-wife some money. He tries to get it through some unreasonable means. It takes a job working at this very nice house in a desolate area. Kind of knows where the hidden merchandise is, and he plans his evening to go get it so he can pay back these debts. Unfortunately, someone else is there to take care of some other type of business, and it just unravels from there. And I feel like this movie, and I've said this before, verbatim, it's gritty and gory. And I say it by gritty, the quality of the video doesn't look great, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's what adds to the suspense of the film, and that's what kind of like really brings in the attention. And you can't turn away because you're like, what's going on here? It's dark, there's a storm, there's all these different types of lighting throughout the house, and the cinematography was great.
Yeah.
And also the internal traps that the collector had placed. So I feel like this film, it's just heart pounding, great cast, great killer. And
Mhm.
the ending was fantastic, which obviously led to The Collection, which came out a few years later.
I didn't know there was a sequel, but after watching
Oh my
this,
gosh, Jagger, come on.
I'm all here for it.
I
Yeah,
made
and
a meme. I made a meme for this while at Dread Central about the collector and the collection, which I will share post recording that you will hopefully appreciate.
and yeah, the cinematography's great. The editing was incredible. I found the snap cuts that are spread throughout the whole movie to keep this hectic, like something's about to happen. So stay watching concept, and it works really
Mhm,
well. Um, and you phrased it perfectly. Like you're glued. That is what this movie really has going for it, and it takes that and runs. So like starting like 20 minutes in, for the remainder of that hour and 10 minutes, it's gory, it's brutal,
mhm.
and it's really hectic, and it works so well.
What I think also really worked was the collector, played by Juan Fernandez, who
Mm.
starred in a really terrible. I remember seeing him like when I started doing my research, like who is this guy? Like who played the collector? I'm like, oh my god, I know the guy from another film. He was in Crocodile Dundee 2 with Paul Hogan, and
Yeesh.
that happens to be one of the worst. I'm sorry to anyone I may offend, but that happens to be one of the worst films, and he was terrible in it. He was just like a terrible bad guy, but his mannerisms in the collector compared to how he was very stern in Crocodile Dundee 2, but in the collector he's very relaxed, menacing. You wouldn't even recognize that it's him if you saw all of his photos, but he was, I think, just a perfect portrayal of this killer, of the collector. And he, certain, I mean, you see a lot of the gifts that are out there, and different clips of like him like being alerted, like when there's a cop outside, or there's someone in the house. Like I just feel like he really took on that role. I feel like he might have been like kind of like a character actor, and it was just flawless. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, his like you said, his mannerisms are great. He's sort of relaxed about all of it going on, sort of nonchalant,
Hmm.
while also being very intimidating and really like kind of and here's the thing. the way that it's filmed makes you feel like you're there with them and you're just being taken around with all of it. And I respect that immensely. And when it comes to a horror movie, in my mind, the goal is to make you feel scared during the process of watching it, not exclusively after. If a movie can scare you after it's over, great. But if you can be scared through the whole experience of it, even better. And this movie achieves that to a T.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's like I said, it's dark. The cinematography was fantastic, especially from the aerial view of the rooms when they're going through the different doors
Yeah.
and Josh Stewart's character Arkin is trying to escape the collector, trying to make himself um, you know, not noticeable.
Mhm.
It was just really just well done. Like I said, and everything. I think the setting was great, the tone, the atmosphere, all that came together very well. Plus all the kills
Yeah.
and the traps that were in there. So as you can see, the people behind this, were really trying to go for the extreme, and they did very well with everything that was placed around the house. And I felt like they did their research in order to keep people trapped inside,
It feels
and deliver it to the fans.
yeah, it feels really claustrophobic almost.
Hmm.
And I think that's sort of the word I'm looking for. Um yeah, it's an incredible, incredible film that I cannot recommend enough. It's super entertaining, pretty scary, very intense, really stressful. Um and it's great. It's just great. Yeah.
Well, I hope we get to talk about the collection sometime soon, which is the sequel to the film. It continues from
Oh,
part one into part two. And then, of course, there was supposed to be a third film, which has kind of been shelved, or they're trying to, bring it back into play. But yeah, it's an interesting set of films because I feel like, especially you get it, in the collection, there's a different person portraying the collector who has a different type of body build and mannerisms as well. So, but the first film really set the stage for what this could potentially become, and I feel like it could become a really great franchise.
yeah. And if we're going to talk about interesting, I feel like I can use that as a segue over to our next film, Evil Dead 2. A personal favorite of mine and about as strange as a horror movie's going to get. Uh with none of it necessarily making sense,
Mhm.
but also it all kind of makes sense. I'll pass it over to you. Um yeah. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Oh, I mean, you can't say anything negative about Evil Dead 2. If you do, I don't think you're a true horror fan. I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit for that, but it's a comedy.
Yes.
It's a horror film. There's a tree raping a woman, or sexually assaulting a woman, I should say. There's deadites in the cellar, uh, a creepy setting. You're in a cabin in the middle of the woods, and you have Bruce Campbell. So where can you go wrong? I mean, it has everything. It delivers, and for late '80s horror, it delivers the cheese, and I think that's what we all appreciate with this character. And look how long this, the Evil Dead character, Ash has been, you know, in films. Like it's still like his character, Bruce Campbell's character Ash, is still one of the most popular horror icons to this day, and rightfully so. It's a lot of tongue in cheek Three Stooges like humor. You have Sam Raimi directing. I think Sam Raimi has a great grasp on how that camera should move for certain scenes. Um,
Yeah.
and a chainsaw for a hand. Who would have thought?
It it to call it the grandfather of the cabin in the woods concept
Mhm.
is reasonable, as a lot of the modern cabin in the woods movies call back to this one. And something that I found really interesting about it is that it completely scraps the first movie, which was very successful as
Mhm.
far as I understand. And they took it, they just removed half of the characters and remade it essentially. And that was the intention with it, except it one-ups the original by adding
Well,
things that were not there, that I guess you didn't know you needed, but they needed to be there because they added immensely to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was definitely an upgrade from the original Evil Dead from 1981. Definitely a better budget,
Yeah,
um, more gore, more blood. I think a more aligned script, and I think the supporting characters were fantastic as well.
yeah,
I think everyone did a great job there, and it made for this cult classic that we all enjoy to this very day. And I still, a lot of people also refer to it as as one of their favorites. A lot of the actors and directors that I communicate with, and do lists or stories on Letterboxd, they talk about how the Evil Dead films are always like their favorite, but especially Evil Dead 2. So
yeah. To say it's the best in the series is something that I would say as my opinion, and it's not a stretch by any means.
not at all.
Um, and I would like to segue from Evil Dead to Nightbreed because there are
Yes.
a fair amount of similarities that could be said. And from what I take it, this is your favorite movie, correct?
This is my favorite horror film. I saw it I actually saw it in the theaters. I was 10. It was 1990. My mom took myself and another friend. Um, I don't know what it did for me. It was just it's a love story, it's a monster film, and it's a slasher. And you
Yeah,
have those three, so it's a trifecta right there. Plus, you have David Cronenberg as Dr. Decker, who is the main villain in the film, who kind of brings it all together. He's basically the one who's like pushing this entire story. He's like he should be the main character, not Craig Sheffer's Boone. But and it's based on the book Cabal by Clyde Barker, who also directed it. Um, but it's funny because to this day I just watched it and I became a fan. And as Josh Rubin has stated, it's the X-Men of horror films. You have
yes.
these monsters have incredible capabilities and powers.
Mhm.
Some can turn into smoke and go through barriers. Some fly. Um, it's and there's a great backstory within the film. As you're toward the end of the film, you kind of learn more about the Nightbreed, and why they're there. They're actually the good guys, and humans are the bad guys, or the bad people. Um, but I don't know. This film is just always. I've always loved it. I love the theatrical cut more than director's cut. Um,
Really?
yeah,
I
I
watched
just
the
you
director's
probably watch the
cut.
director's cut.
Yeah,
The theatrical cut has a lot less, and different people are killed. Um, but I just love it, and I feel like because it told the story in the amount of time that it was allotted, and I think it was great. Um, but a lot of people enjoy the film for different reasons. I think there were a number of people in the gay community who loved the film because it actually allowed. I think for a lot of them, they said like just allowed them to be free and express who they are, and some
yeah,
people. And at this time, there were people who were coming out and they were battling monsters, because of who they were, and those monsters in this case, they were the gay community were the monsters or the Nightbreed, and the people that were against them were the humans. But like I said, for myself, I just felt like the film is just a great monster film, a great slasher film, and a great love story. And it culminates in the end, and then we just see a bunch of mayhem occur, and these people just want to be alone, left alone, and do their thing.
yeah.
And like I said, it's human nature just go and be like, we don't like that, so we're going to destroy it. And we see what happens in the film.
Yeah, and I think that there's two real ways that it can be taken. And if you look at the reviews of this movie having a 3.3 average, clearly those two different views have been shown heavily on either side.
Yep.
Now, I have this movie at a 3.5. Um, Maybe it was sort of the mindset I was in watching it, but whatever it shall be, this is a film that I can totally understand why it could be a favorite, possibly a number one favorite. Um, it is the two ways in my mind that it can be taken are just like a monster movie, which is how I took the other Clive Barker movie. I haven't seen it in a minute. The only other one I've seen is Hellraiser. And I think you can take that as just a monster movie. But you can also take this as a film with a lot of beauty to it.
Yes.
And I really respect a movie that can be taken two polar opposite ways depending on your understanding of being able to decipher film. There's a lot of movies that pull that off and a lot of movies that try to pull it off but can't. I love David Cronenberg for that. He has a lot of movies that can be taken as either just a weird violent mess or commentary, something beautiful.
Right.
And that's how you can sort of tie these two together. You see that a lot with things like David Lynch as well.
Mhm.
And I love a movie that can do that, and I think that this executed it masterfully. I loved this movie, and with a rating of 3.5, I feel as though that could be altered the more I sort of digest it. That was like a very I just finished it. Here's my rating. But giving it some time to wait, what were you saying?
One day it'll come to it'll be a 5-star, for you one day. Well, you notice I think all the 1 stars are probably from all my ex-girlfriends I made watch it, over the years. They probably hated me for that, but I know none of my ex-girlfriends liked horror films. None of them. So I know this was never for them. I'm like, come on, I had to watch your down to you romance comedy. I'm like, you're gonna watch Nightbreed. Never won them over. But like I said, it's not for everyone. And I think that's what's great about film. Yes, it's a 3.3. I wish it was higher. There's nothing that can be done. But I feel like film is interpreted in different ways, whether any genre. And like I said, you can look at it from a different point of view. You might say, well, I like the special effects, so it gets a 5, or some people, but I hate the story. Or, I love the story, could do without David Cronenberg and the monsters, and who cares about the cops? Like, there's so many different things that people judge about films. But I don't know. It like I said, this has just been like a magical movie for me. It was just like I think at the time when I was 10, I was just like I wasn't like a popular kid in school. I did my own thing, loved, heavy metal and horror films. And, I felt like I was an outsider amongst my other friends and classmates. So I felt like, this film was like, this was a community that accepted people no matter who they were. Of course, Boone came in from different circumstances, but they survived together. They all had different powers and capabilities, but they were still together in Midian under, in that cemetery, and minding their own business and thriving. And then someone came and interrupted it. So, that ripple in the pond really changed a lot of things that happened to them.
Yeah. And I mean, there you go. A movie that can achieve hitting people like that with just having fun, but also having some form of relatability. I think that's where you achieve art. And that's what film is. Film is an art. It's highly subjective. And that's what you have to love about it.
Yeah,
Everyone has a different favorite movie. And that's, yeah.
I joined the Letterbox show in October, and obviously we talked about Nightbreed there, and Gemma and Slim, who both managed the podcast, they had to watch the film, and I felt so bad because I read the reviews after, and they're like, but like I said, just like you said, like film is open to interpretation. People have certain interests and why they love these films, and being able to speak about it, especially here today, is very rewarding. So people maybe get like a different perspective. They might say, hey, I did watch Nightbreed. I didn't like it, but I'm listening to this podcast and I understand where they're coming from. Maybe I'll give it a rewatch, and maybe my rating will change from a 3 to a 5 or a 1 to a 5.
Going in with a different point of view. And I think that's kind of great. And Trey, if you want to hop back on here, I think we can now head into our final movie of the episode today with Pump Up the Volume.
Yeah, just give me 1 sec. I need to close this door behind me.
All right. And just to sort of intro it in, this is a movie that we all...
Yeah, Pump Up the Volume.
This is a movie that we all love here.
I'm just like, I called Jagger with about 50. Sorry, I'm just gonna go right. I'm gonna go right into it.
Please.
I called Jagger with like 15 minutes left, and I was like, Jagger, this movie is a fucking banger. And he was like, right? looking at all the things going, like my thoughts before going in this movie, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be fine. It's Christian Slater. It's a movie I've never heard of. Came out in 1990. It's going to be fine. But it was like the perfect moment because it still had that fun of 80s coming of age films, of independence and just that fun goofiness, but also had just enough of that 90s rebellious angst that made for just like a perfect coming of age film. It was
Thank you.
so excellent. And it, God, it is so relatable. It in such even now in such a deep way, for all kids that feel unheard and feel like they have no control in life. And it's just God, it was so good. Oh,
Yeah, it
sorry,
is.
sorry.
No. Look, this is why you have a podcast. This is why you talk about films. I mean, I'm with you on this, Trey. Like, I can talk about Pump Up the Volume for a long time, just like all these other films that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
And there's something about this film. I know it's different than the rest that we're speaking about because it's more of a drama in a way. It's not
Mhm.
horror, but Pump Up the Volume, one awesome soundtrack. You know, you have Was Not Was, Leonard Cohen. I think there was some old Soundgarden, Beastie Boys in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Christian Slater was fantastic in this. Samantha Mathis is probably my ideal woman. I loved her in this film. She's like my dream, literally my dream. She was also starred with Christian Slater years later in Black Arrow with was it Black Arrow? Oh my god, I'm something Arrow. I think it's Black Arrow with John Travolta. So and that's a great action film by the way. But Broken Arrow, excuse me, it's Broken Arrow with John Travolta. Yeah, awesome film. But I mean, this takes place in 1990, or when it's filmed. Obviously, this is before social media, before cell phones. You know, a lot of online bullying. So we, you know, there's different themes in this film. There's, you know, there's the bullying, there's suicide, and then there's a new student, Christian Slater, Mark, in this town, and I think it's in Arizona, and he's basically trying to discover who he is. You know, he's in a new setting. You know, basically when you move to a different place, you can kind of form who you want to be. He's
Mhm.
just wanted to stick to his thing and stay in his basement bedroom, and he had this other persona, Happy Hard on Harry. Which turned out to be a huge success there with their ham radios and their different antennas and all these things. And he just bashed the teachers, the faculty, the staff, because he was getting records from his father, who was very big in the district. So he was kind of like feeding that stuff into his show. And of course, they were always perplexed as to like how does this this radio personality know so much about what's going on? It's because Mark basically was on the inside in a way, through a connection. But I know it was just amazing how everything unfolded throughout the film. Like I said, we had a great story, how he's discovered by Samantha Mathis, and then, finally just the big unveiling of who was behind the curtain. Really just roped me in all those years ago when I first saw it, and it's still a classic to this day.
Yeah. And that like good final chunk of the movie where it's like all of it is starting to finally unravel all the way down to that big, huge in scope ending. It really shows how a movie, and especially a movie like this, can have a 3-act plot without doing that in like the cliche 3-act plot manner, where it starts sort of like the early success of the character, the persona, and then it starts to become problematic in that second act where it's like they're blaming him for suicides and crimes and such. And then that third act where it makes him break. He can't do it anymore. He's under way too much pressure and it just gets the best of him, and that's the end of the persona.
Yeah, he had that it's a win or nothing attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that right. That third act was him saying like, should I or should I not do this? And of course, going through with the plan was the end goal.
Yeah.
But then he roped her into it. He roped Samantha Mathis' character into it. So she's probably gonna, she would experience the same fate as him. But yeah, it's like I said, we discover who he is at the beginning, and then like kind of in the middle, it's just like, oh, this online personality, this radio personality, excuse me, is pushing a lot of buttons, in the good way for the students, in the bad way for the faculty and the staff, and then of course the FCC gets involved, and then it's like, okay, we might fail at this, or we can stick up for what we believe in, which is, the latter is what they go for. And yeah, I don't know. I think it was just such a pioneering film, such in the early days, because as we see in the end, spoiler alert, you have all these people who are suddenly like, oh hi, I'm on this radio and in this state, anyone listening, and so he influenced a lot of people, and I think we do see this in today's society, especially with social media. Someone does something, and it's like that ripple effect, and then people replicate that process, and it goes into the void.
Yeah.
It's a movie that has stayed incredibly relevant, and I
Mhm.
wish it got a little more recognition because it's a movie that recently has started to go under the radar. It just recently got taken off Max, to my surprise. When Trey, you couldn't find it,
Yeah, I had to
and
go to the deep dark corners of the internet to find a way to view this.
I'm so
and
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's always a fun adventure looking through Reddit, people like, here's a link to this, and then it's really not a link to what you think it's a link to. Something completely different that you're like, why, guys, come on.
Yeah, it was a
But
different pump up the volume.
yes. But yeah, it was totally worth it. It was a great
Oh,
film.
yeah. I,
Um,
mean, I believe it was going to be remade, or it's in the process of being remade. And like that's what I don't like about Hollywood. I think they're not becoming original anymore. Um,
God, you have no
but this,
idea how much we've talked about this
yeah,
one
it's
topic.
yeah, and this has happened with a lot of films, especially another Christian Slater film. They were making Heather's into a TV series, and I think they did
no,
film. I think they did film it, and they were going to release it, and then something happened. But I'm kind of glad it never went to air because it's just a classic. I don't think the classic should be touched or remade, unless it's Dawn of the Dead and The Crazies, which I think were two fantastic remakes.
Mhm.
But like I said, it's really open to interpretation. But I feel like if they remade Pump Up the Volume, it would have a lot of the social media elements in there. So I feel like they would make an updated version just to appeal to these new audiences. But like this is a classic, I really don't think should be touched and just
yeah,
left
Yeah,
alone.
and obviously it still appeals to the younger audiences that they would be remaking it for, which is just so ridiculous. I mean, let's just make it's the same thing. We got the Color Purple remake coming out this month. And I'm like, come on, man. You got this masterpiece of a film that Steven Spielberg made like 25 years ago. And now instead of making something new, something fresh, something people actually want to see, you're just going to do it again. It's so frustrating.
It's lazy in a way.
yeah.
Exactly.
Aren't they remaking Roadhouse with?
Yes, Jake
They
Gyllenhaal, I think it
Okay,
was.
here's the thing.
Yeah,
I'm actually excited for
Oh,
that
yeah.
because I love Jake
He's a
Gyllenhaal.
good actor. Yeah,
So I'm excited for that. But
yeah.
it's yeah.
It's
yeah.
I
It's
Um
lazy. It's lazy.
yeah.
It's
But
it
before
is.
we get to the end of our episode, I've prepared a little game for you,
Oh,
Jagger and Brett.
all right.
We are gonna do guess the movie by the cast. So I
Oh,
prepared about 5 or 6 horror movies. You
all
guys
right.
get 3 total clues um, throughout the entire thing. So you'll want to use them wisely. You're working together as a team to see how many you can get.
All
okay.
right.
So I'm going to go through some horror movies. These are all, in my opinion, pretty well-known horror movies. Um, and I'll probably start like middle of the cast, like small roles, and then work my way up to like the leads. But yeah, let's just see if you can guess some of these. I'm going to start with this one. So in this one, we have Ann Dowd. Oh, and no using computers. No
All
using
right.
computers because that'd be cheating. That would make we have Ann Dowd is in this one. Millie Shapiro. If you have any guesses, let me know. Alex Wolf is in this one.
Is it Hereditary?
Hereditary.
Yeah, it is. It
All
is.
right.
That's one. That one doesn't have, I realized just now, doesn't have a very deep cast. So you just have to name like the main people right off the top.
You should say Tony Colletti, you know? Tony Collette.
Well, then that's like an
That would have given
obvious
away.
giveaway. She hasn't been in a lot of horror, at
That's
least
true.
that I've seen. Oh yeah, this one. Yep, this is one I was going to do. This one I feel like has a pretty deep cast. So in this one we have Benedict Wong. Sorry if you can hear my nephew. He's having a little temper tantrum downstairs. Oscar Isaac. Tessa Thompson. Gina Rodriguez. Do you guys want me to keep going, or do you want a clue? Or
it's not Bird Box. I think because Benedict Wong. Oh my god, I think I'm getting him confused with someone else.
Do you want another actor?
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Oh man, wait.
I'm blanking because when I think Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think Fast Times, and now I'm strung up on that.
Yeah,
and I think of Single White Female, or I also think of Existence. But another clue. Bring another clue.
Do you want to use one of your three clues, or do you want the lead actress?
I'll take a clue.
We'll take a clue. We'll take a clue.
So this director, the director of this film, also directed such films as Men and Ex Machina, and just released a trailer for his upcoming film Civil War.
That's Alex Garland. Oh man.
And it's not Men. I'm trying to think Alex Garland horror.
I don't know why I'm blanking out.
And the lead actress is Natalie Portman.
Oh, May December. No,
Annihilation.
No, not May December.
Annihilation. That is correct.
That's
that's my all-time favorite sci-fi horror film.
I went to high school with Natalie Portman.
Are you serious?
Really?
She's 2 years younger, but yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
But I used to see her. She's in my yearbook, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was class in 97. She's class in 99. So
Annihilation was the answer. Oh, Jagger, you haven't even seen that. You need to get on that, man. It's outstanding.
Yeah, it's been a while for me, but yes,
it's
definitely.
So good. All right, where's my next one? I had this pulled up. Give me one sec, guys. I have so many windows open. Okay, here we go. Got one. Here it is. All right, this one stars such actors as Sigourney Weaver, Bradley Whitford, Richard Jenkins, Chris Hemsworth, Anna Hutchinson.
Oh wait, why am I blanking on this?
And these are all horror films. Jesse Williams.
Oh, Cabin in the Woods.
Yes, Cabin in the
Woods. Sorry, Jagger. I'm sorry.
You had it.
Cabin in the Woods is the correct answer.
You know, I heard Sigourney Weaver, and I'm thinking horror, and then I almost said Copycat immediately. Not Copycat. Copycat with Harry Connick Jr. That's where I thought this was leading to, which is a great film, by the way.
I thought I could get you guys with the Sigourney Weaver because if I think Sigourney Weaver horror, I always go to Alien.
If you were listing off the actors for Alien, you would not have gone Sigourney Weaver first.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You probably do like Tom Skerritt and.
Yeah. Let's see. Where is it? Here we go. Got it. All right. And this one. This one doesn't have a very deep cast. So I'm going to name the first two and see if you can get it. And then, Winona Ryder and Vincent Cassell.
What?
This is more of a body horror one.
Are you calling Black Swan a horror movie?
Yes, I am. That's totally a horror movie.
This is the second Natalie Portman film also.
Oh, I didn't even realize I did that. I do love Natalie Portman. So we got 2 more for you guys. You
And then
guys
when
are
was Victor Cassell, was he also in Ocean's 13?
Ocean's 12. He was in Ocean's 12. Vincent Cassell. He played like the antagonist, I guess.
I thought it was in Ocean's 13.
I haven't seen Ocean's 13, but I know he's
Oh.
in Ocean's 12, which is the second
Maybe
one.
I didn't see Ocean's 12, which is kind of weird.
Oh, it's just as good as the first one.
Oh, okay. I watched 11 and 13. I watched.
And all right, 5th one. This is our penultimate film. I have a few here. We're gonna go here. This one has a deep cast. We'll see if you guys can get this.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Finn Wolfhard. Jack Dylan Grazer. No.
Oh.
It too?
Sophia Lillis. Yes. Damn it. I thought I could get you with that. I should have started somewhere else. I don't know how you got that so fast.
Well, wait, was the second name, is that Georgie?
Jack Dylan Grazer? No, he plays Eddie.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know anything else he's in, so that's just sort of where my mind went.
He was good though.
I mean, he was in Shazam. He is excellent.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's in Shazam. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Final one. I'm gonna.
Right.
It might be a bit difficult, but it is a very mainstream horror.
Right.
So we're gonna start with Liev Schreiber, Drew Barrymore, Jamie Kennedy.
What?
Rose McGowan.
This is Scream?
It is Scream.
Oh yeah, I forgot Lee Schreiber's in there. I wish I could get it. He's Cotton Weary.
Yeah.
I wish I could get that. And he's a main part of the whole thing. Yeah.
That is Guess the Movie. Brett, we were honored to have you on today. We hope to have you on again in the future. Thank you for coming on.
Please do. Yeah. No, thank you. No, really, thank you for the invitation for today. I love talking horror and any other genre as well. So
we'll definitely have you on again. If you guys, the listeners, want to follow me and Jagger, I'm Trey the Film Noob, TikTok, Twitter, Letterboxd. Jagger is Jagger Film Fan. God, I'm forgetting it today. Jagger Film Fan on, I think it's Letterboxd, and then Jagger the Film Reviews on TikTok and Twitter, and Jagger the Movie Guy on Instagram and Twitch. You should just make them all the same thing. That would make my life so much easier.
You did a great job in remembering all those, though. I mean,
it's like muscle.
Easy.
There's a few episodes where my brain is shut down by the end because we're recording super late or something, and it's just muscle memory. I just know it by heart. And then if you want to, Brett is just Brett Petersel on Letterboxd. If you want to follow his HQ, Horrorville is the HQ that he works on. And follow both of those. Great reviews, great stories over at Horrorville. And we will, I don't know when this is coming out. I think we talked about this coming out next Wednesday, Jagger. So join us Friday for part 2 of our Kubrick watch through, where I believe we will be reviewing Spartacus and Paths of, let me see here. We will be reviewing The Killing and Paths of Glory. So join us Friday for that. And thank you. Have a good rest of your day.